Cause they stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.TV, the only place you get this kind of stuff. My name is Michael, and man, I've been working my ass off doing hurricane repair, and I'm almost tired, man. It's like I just get like a break, and I just like veg. I'm tired. What's going on with you?
Oh, I'm Nicholas, and I am sponsored tonight by Barbersville Vineyards Pinot Grigio.
I've got a Miller Lite myself. They were kind enough to make sure that a shipment hit my local convenience store, so I'm going to have one.
Yeah, well, you know, I just wanted to, I got to give a shout out. You know, it's my guilty pleasure. NFL season has begun, week 1 in the books, and Denver is again in first place in a 3-way tie for the AFC West. But what's even better is that they beat the pants off of Phillip Rivers and made him cry again.
You know, I am so far out of touch with the NFL. I don't even know how many games they play anymore. It used to be 16 last time I almost cared.
Yeah, it's still that they're talking about getting rid of 2 of the preseason games and adding them to the end of the season.
Oh, that's got to be to increase like betting odds or something like that.
I think it's just to increase the games where people will actually show up.
And you said that it also changed that now that there's 2 Monday Night Football games.
So this being the opening weekend, they stuffed 2 games in on Monday. The season opener on a Thursday.
Is that going to be a regular feature where there's 2 Monday night games?
I don't believe so. I think that was just simply for the opening weekend.
They're going to have to do that if they want to make the NFL 37% more exciting in light of, you know, people taking a knee during the national anthem. And kind of like, you know, I would dare say dishonoring veterans or something like that.
Well, it's exactly what it is. But aside from that fact, I think what you're seeing is, you know, no NFL owner has been willing to have Colin Kaepernick on his team for his stance, whether it's just because he sucks as a quarterback or because he's doing his little protest thing. Nobody's really willing to have him in there, and I don't feel bad for him at all. If he wants to put his money where his mouth is, he's more than welcome.
Can't find a helmet to fit that haircut, man. They just can't find a helmet made to fit that haircut. Nobody wants to foot the bill. Because, I mean, that's like a work. That's right there. You know,
the one thing I think people, you know, most people go to the NFL for entertainment value and want a little bit of, you know, release from their daily stress and, you know, something to look forward to on a Sunday afternoon. Nobody wants to get political when they're trying to enjoy their beer and nachos. Nobody wants to do that.
It's not necessarily even political because, I mean, at a point, some people do want to be political because they actually feel about it. But what they want is like a camaraderie of that political expression. They don't necessarily need to be preached at by something that absolutely violates the core of their being. I mean, the NFL's like creating like a I don't know, an LGBTQ RST friendly section, like they're expending a large amount of dollars to cater to that audience and create like, I don't know, rainbow friendly, you know. I don't know,
I'm sure that if the NFL if they had the preseason going in June, I'm sure you would see the NFL Pride games in June, you know, with players wearing like rainbow colored like wristbands and headbands and whatnot. Yeah.
Rainbow colored vertical stripe socks.
Ooh, yeah, that vertical stripe shock stuff that hits close to home for Denver fans.
You know, I got to kick the donkeys every once in a while. Yeah, that's the way they run the best, isn't it?
You know, that would be considered a microaggression against animals.
You know. By the way, my dog Sasquatch is co-star tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's a good girl.
There you go. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. Like I said, just the run up in this for me. I run a fantasy football league, and that's not everybody's cup of tea. But for me, being active duty military, I tend to go a lot of places, and that's one way to keep in touch with good buddies throughout the world. And we get eight or so guys in there, 10 guys on a good year, 8 guys most years. And for between 25 and $30 a season, that's your commitment to it. I mean, I can't spend $35 going into a gun range and buying ammo there at the range for that amount.
So let's talk about the last time I went to a gun range, and I'll give you
please do.
The cost of that. I of course brought my own weapons. I brought some of my own ammo, and to be a good sportsman and patronize a local business that's involved in something, I bought a box of ammo each of the calibers that I brought. I bought 2 targets. They provided the eye protection and hearing protection for free. It was a very, very nice range. It was air conditioned. It was well ventilated. The automated targets, where you just flip the switch and it moves on down the line. I believe it was 35 yards or 75 feet was the midpoint. It's a fairly long building. It was for me and a friend to shoot for, let's say, for about an hour and a half. It was $125.
Wow.
Yeah.
And last time I went to an indoor range was actually in Santa Clara, California. And I just went there to actually just shoot some rounds in a shotgun.
Okay, so now wait up. You have to explain. Santa Clara, California is kind of a very different place.
Certainly.
I'm in Texas, and I went to this range in the state of Texas, a state that's fairly firearms friendly when it comes down to it. I mean, we're not the ultimate capital of firearm freedom like a lot of people think, but we're fairly firearms friendly. Santa Clara, California is not a firearm friendly place.
No, absolutely the antithesis of a firearm friendly place, as a matter of fact. Being California and what's worse, the Bay Area of California, they did have very close to the San Jose International Airport, Mendota International Airport is a gun range. It was there in 2001 through 2005. I don't know if it's still there or not anymore. But I had a verbal agreement with the owner that I wouldn't do anything crazy, and if I did want to do anything like practice, high velocity shooting, that he would move me to the end of the range, and he would tell me when I could just go crazy and go combat style. But if I wanted to shoot a pistol or anything like that, it would just follow regular range rules. But it's when the slugs came out, that's when I wanted to do my tactical shotgun practice, and he's like, yeah, you're just gonna have to wait till everybody leaves the shop before I let you do that.
I can almost agree with that, because a slug is generally something that's in a high brass load, and usually the high brass loads are high brass because they need to contain more pressure, more powder, and more powder makes more boom and makes more boom, which you would need because a slug is a fairly heavy round. I don't know that I'd necessarily use slugs at an indoor range. I think I'd probably, if I had to use a shotgun at an indoor range, and I'm also kind of privileged because I'm in an area where if I want to shoot a shotgun, I don't necessarily have to go to an indoor range. I can drive 4 miles out of town, and I can totally pop off a box of shells before anything happens.
Right.
And I mean, not like in an illegal way, but I mean, I just go to the dump. I can go to an empty rice field. You being or at that time being in a far more urban area than I was in, I'm at now. It's I think I don't know, and slugs are cheap enough that you can actually just kind of like burn them.
And especially if you go like with a gauge lower, if you go like with a 20 gauge versus 12 gauge, they're almost affordable.
I'll tell you what, I really find 12 gauge ammunition to be, pound for pound and dollar for dollar, it to be the best value out there. Usually you can buy even the cheapest box of target load. Usually comes in 25 rounds to a box. Sometimes you can get that for like $5 a round, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this being dove season, you'll see a lot of the number 7 or the number 7.5
It,
shot.
7.5, 7, 6.5, 6. That it's all that, rabbit and squirrel, dove and quail.
Yeah,
And
and those are the ones that are actually coming in these big 100 round boxes right now.
I would not admit to owning quite a few of those. I really like that stuff. It's good for plinking. It's good for helping somebody out with, um, teaching somebody how to shoot, uh, maybe exposing them to a new firearm if they already know how to shoot. But it's also they're handy. You can do a lot of things with one of those. Dove and quail. It's 7.5 shot. It's
Yeah, and it will
it's
definitely
designed
take down a snake for you.
it'll take down a snake. But I mean, if you needed to, and you needed something with a little more oomph behind it, because I mean, you have to look at it like pattern dispersal. And honestly, you shouldn't, unless you're being attacked by doves. Don't shoot it with like dove and quail.
Right.
You know, if you're being attacked by birds, use bird shot. What you can do with this is you can cut the top off of these. They're all pretty much, especially the American-made shells, are kind of with a roll crimp. It's got a kind of a little lip on the outside, so to speak. We can cut that off and take out the little part that covers the little flaps that cover the orifice of the shell, and dump that shot out and squirt some hot glue in there and stuff that stuff back in. And just do one shell at a time. You've just made an improvised slug that's probably far more effective on soft tissue than anything you can buy in the store right now. And you did it for the price of borrowing somebody's hot glue gun and a package of glue sticks and a package of shells and a little
Yeah,
bit of your time.
that's probably more mechanical ability than I have. Definitely patience wise.
I'll tell you what, if you were to see the effect of one of these on something that you would consider to be a fairly solid object, I think you'd change your mind because you've got a patience for reloading that I don't have, and I
Yeah.
would almost consider this to be poor man's reloading, and maybe poor man in the method of I have poor attention span.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing too is that it all depends on what you want to use it on, right? If you want like a good general purpose round, you could say like turkey load might even be something to think
Oh,
about.
I would. I'll tell you what. What I would like to find is a load that was some double aught buck mixed with number 4 turkey shot. That
Oh,
would
that would
be.
that would kind of like be the equivalent of the PDX rounds, huh?
I would say so. I think I don't know if it's number 4 turkey shot in the PDX rounds. The PDX rounds usually I found to be uh, just in the presentation. I found it to be a little bit overbearing. It acts like it's the answer to everything, and
Oh, and when something
I,
claims it's the answer to everything, you know it's the answer to nothing.
I think when somebody has the answer to everything, it usually involves a water filter or some sort of like male vitality capsule or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know. I think there's a whole lot of innovation in the 12 gauge ammunition market, and I mean we see that same innovation through like all of the ammunition market. I think it's like concentrated in the 9 millimeter, the 5.56, and the 12 gauge market. Um, but in the end, the old standbys work. You know, a slug. Who does not love a .76 caliber rifle?
Yeah, but I mean, and here's the thing: are most people able to shoot that accurately and can put an aimed shot on target?
Well, here's the beauty: you step down from the slug and you go to some double aught buck, some triple aught buck. They're
Yeah.
doing a lot better right now, and I think with the right size stock, it's fairly easy to handle. I think even a 12 gauge. I mean, I know you've got a little bit of shoulder damage, and you would prefer to shoot a 20 gauge, but well, I mean, if it came down to it, You could easily shoulder a 12 gauge and use it all day if you absolutely had to. If it was that, or you not being in the ground, you could do it.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
And probably do it 3 or 4 days. So, I mean, the issue for you is almost more comfort due to some injuries, but it's not something that's completely unmanageable for you.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's the thing.
It's unmanageable for almost anybody.
And there's other different modifications to the loads out there, such as reduced recoil loads. That's something to consider also.
Well, not only are there the reduced recoil loads, there's also the 1 3/4 shells. Agula makes a whole bunch of them. They usually refer to them as the mini shell, and they've got serious payloads in them. I mean, they're still double aught buck. They still have the requisite amount of 12 gauge of pellets in there, and they're shorter. Some firearms, I know the Mossberg 500. Somebody may say aftermarket add-on that clips onto the shell carrier and allows you to load. I want to say it's 9 into what was formerly a 6-round tube. So 9 rounds of 12 gauge is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most times you get a shotgun that has to have that magazine extension to be able to handle that capacity.
Well, most shotguns are. I would dare say most shotguns on the market right now have the ability to take 5 once you remove the plug. Would you say that's not accurate? I mean,
yeah, probably. But I mean, when you, and then the propensity of you to get in trouble if you have that shotgun with the plug removed, driving certain states during hunting season, makes your risk go up exponentially.
Right, and then that's also kind of obliviated with a court, or I shouldn't say obliviated because nothing is ever obliviated with a court. I should say negated by having a non-hunting length barrel. So like having an 18-inch defense barrel on a shotgun with the plug removed will probably exempt you from the any sort of hunting regulations with fishing game.
Yeah, well, you never know. It just gives an aggressive district attorney something to go for. It's kind of like a constructive intent. What did you mean to do with this?
Right. And we've seen that constructive intent before, and it's something that where is an attorney on the side of the people who actually destroys that argument for us?
Yeah.
You never know. Hey, so speaking of things being destroyed and actually in our favor, you, as a former resident of California, are somewhat familiar with California firearms laws.
I unfortunately, I am.
Okay, so you are aware of the one of the most draconian laws in the United States, which is a restriction on the size of a pistol. It's one of the few, I think it's the only place in the United States that has there's certain counties that have a restriction on the size of a pistol. So let's say you could buy your 1911, or you could buy a Glock, with its associated downsized magazine, but you wouldn't be able to buy a Glock 43 because that is considered to be too small and too concealable. Are you aware of that?
Yeah. So basically
that hangs in a few different counties around the state.
Yeah, so the LA City Council recently voted to end the ban on sales of what they call ultra compact guns.
And how do you feel about that? I mean, that's kind of like a rare win for
and so
in one of the darkest states.
So take a look at this. When I consider something to be ultra compact, I think back to just, derringers, something that is extremely easy to conceal, something that is, palm of hand or, just the meat of your hand or smaller, That's what I'm looking at.
All right. So what would you consider to be in the ultra compact market? Because honestly, you're going to be very, very limited on size, and anything of any sort of substantial caliber is going to be probably fairly hefty in your hand, and then associatedly heavy in your pocket.
Oh, certainly. So this ban went into effect about 15 years ago. The LA County or the LA City Attorney Mike Foyer, who was a councilman, said that the concealable compact weapons are the weapons of choice for criminals, not like any weapon could be used. He specifically stated that this is their go-to gun. Um,
And
California state law.
he's from what county? He's from L.A. County.
Yeah, LA County, because he was a city attorney.
Okay, so let me pose a question at you. L.A. County, what city, what manufacturer in what city is usually associated with small, cheap firearms that would fit the description that would be under this bill?
Well, you're usually talking Derringers, but probably you could say Jimenez Arms or something like that.
That's right, Jimenez Arms, Bryco, Jennings.
Yep, all the
That's it,
all
right
the good
there.
ones.
The Ring of Fire guns, as they were once said. So this is just another great big form of the magic gun control, keeping the cheap guns out of people's hands. With those,
When you think about it, that's
almost saying
profiling, man, and profiling is wrong.
it is. It really is, man. I mean, it's really a discrimination against the people who, because honestly, somebody who buys one of those Ring of Fire guns, the Jennings, the Bryco, the Jimenez Arms. I mean, how many names are there? I mean, it's out of like 4 different factories. It's all the same family. They're using probably the same machinery that they've used since the very first gun. They just keep moving it. They keep changing names to deal with tax and lawsuits and all that, and they keep producing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then, to go further, the LA Times article on the same story, basically it detailed the ban on the city's large capacity ammunition magazines being put on hold in the wake of a federal court ruling. So, for the city, and their proclivity to put undue restrictions on the rights of gun owners, they've taken a couple hits, and something, like I said, you and I were talking yesterday between Oregon and California. Oregon is becoming the new California because
Oregon seems to be far more, quote unquote, progressive, and California is, and maybe there's more people in California pushing back. Maybe the people who believe along the lines that you and I do aren't pushing back against certain things in Oregon. Oregon has enacted a few fairly draconian gun and drug laws in effect there right now. They've got mandatory confiscation in certain circumstances right now in Oregon.
Yeah,
and they've repurposed some of the drug enforcement teams that they had in the past to firearms confiscation.
Yeah.
And if that's not a harbinger of the future, I have no idea.
I think what's going to be important to view is I sent you a story early, and we've talked about this once before. Chicago, of all cities, is being one of the cities in the nation that is being or is having the most increase in terms of applications from minority women, specifically black females, that are applying for concealed carry permits. What do you think of that?
I think they're scared of Trump.
You think the black females are scared of Trump?
No, I think that's actually, that was a jovial answer on my part, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've been drinking. I wasn't expecting you to be serious.
Yeah. I think it's a natural progression because, I mean, honestly, black females in Chicago. Number one, it's a very uncomfortable discussion to have amongst people sometimes to discuss blacks when you are not a black. But I mean, there are plain statistics. This is straight out in the open. This comes from the FBI. This comes from the CIA. It comes from Urban Housing Council. It comes from Centers for Disease Control. There are certain differences in groups and depending on where they live. And in Chicago, women outnumber men because young men die early, and young men don't reproduce necessarily. And chemicals in the water or whatever, women tend to have more girls in the black culture, And, I mean, there's 60% abortion rate on babies. So, there's all kinds of factors that come into that. But so you put women into like what could be formerly described as a patriarchal position. And now
God
they
damn
are
that patriarchy.
the patriarchy doing it again. But now that you've like kind of like swapped gender roles, and I mean that's a huge cultural difference right there. Now you've got women acting like the fathers, and
yeah, but I mean that was by
they're
design going back about 150 years.
It absolutely is by design. Destroy the family, and you've got like just a generation of robots you can control. But I see this increase in the application of firearms permits. Yeah, I think these women realize that they can't just like smack these little kids on the ass anymore and send them to their room. Now these kids got MAC-10s. They got to be able to shoot back.
Yeah, and the problem is that, like I said,
and you know what? Praise Jesus that they have MAC-10s, because those are gigantic pieces of crap, and they will probably hold them sideways and end up shooting somebody like actually kitty corner from themselves.
Yeah, somebody totally not intended.
And totally sorry, young victim in a wheelchair or in a baby carriage or something. But yeah, I don't know. I see it as kind of like I mean, look, we could talk about a really uncomfortable fact, and I mean, it's the truth. If you look at American blacks being like 16.5%, or what is it, 13.5% of the American population,
yeah.
And you break all the way down, and you've got the combat age American black male at
the military age male, the MAM.
That's right. The military age male between about 14 and 45. That's what you're going to call it. I mean,
yeah.
That's what you would call it in your clinical definition. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So 14 to 45. That accounts for probably about 3 and a quarter to 3 and 5/8% of whatever the total American population is. And that group is responsible for like 52% of violent crime in the United States. And you can't necessarily just put it on. It's the color. It's how they are. It's genetic. No, man. There's all kinds of like cultural difference. I mean, look, this culture that's been forced upon the urban people is garbage. I mean, Nick. I mean, you and I kind of like grew up before like gangster rap came out, and then after it came out.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, you could see a cultural shift.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, the interesting thing is that when you think about it, the beginnings of that genre, you could say they went back, gangster rap really kind of hit the scene in, the early 90s, whether it was,
I'm a little bit new, and I would say that I remember listening to the band called the NWA at the bus stop in Washington, waiting to go to a certain high school in that area. And that was in the 80s. That was in the late 80s. And I can tell you that I got the LL Cool J album Radio when I was...
That would have been between 87 and 89. So I'm guessing 88.
88, I think. I got it for Christmas at 88. I got that album. So it's been that this ghetto fabulous glamorization has been happening since I was 16.
Well, and that's the thing, though. I don't think so. You want to talk about gangster rap? You can definitely say NWA. You can't really say that for LL Cool J, who was an East Coast rapper, versus NWA, which was West Coast. And now that we're going to totally alienate our core audience.
Hey, you know what? In the words of Joe Cooley and Rodney O, fuck New York.
New York. I agree with that 100%. Yeah. But you ever notice that they never had any good guns in those videos?
Do you remember that? Do you remember MTV cutting guns out of the videos, like blurring the guns?
Yeah, absolutely.
Using to play the videos that had the guns. And then now you get into this. Okay, so we've got this explosion of urban crime. Well, who glamorized it?
Oh, every news outlet that needed ratings.
What better way to pound the propaganda into the heads of children who have substandard education than to put it to like a tribal beat and give it to them in 4-minute doses with tits, ass, and machine guns. How better to drive that into like a kid's head to turn him into a warrior? I mean, really. I mean, it may sound crude, but I mean, what are you going to operate on? You're going to operate on primal urges, and seriously, the urge to mate and reproduce that's a very, very powerful force. That's almost as strong as anger.
Yeah. Well, it's honestly, the way I look at it is it's the social class manifesto, and the social classes going against one another with the inequities of wealth distribution. It's a socialist plot.
I have a feeling that Comrade Jamal and Comrade Cletus are waiting in the wings to put the pistol to a young revolutionary's head for not being dedicated enough to the cause.
Yeah, there you go.
I think it's coming. I think I hate to almost harp on this, but I truly believe it. I think everybody should read George Orwell's Homage to Catalonia. It's a fascinating book, and I mean I can almost agree with him in almost 90% of it. I mean not in the things that I haven't experienced, but some of the things that he experienced in that I can see in my life. Like I don't necessarily hate all cops, but when I see a cop, harassing like, let's just go off the top here. I mean, the latest one that popped out was the officer who was harassing I don't know. I wouldn't say he was Mexican. I'd say he was actually Guatemalan or maybe something a little bit further south. If he was Mexican, he was way far south Mexican, like Chiapas or something. He was a short brown dude. He wasn't northern Mexican. Anyways, he had a hot dog cart, and the cop ticketed him, but he took his earnings.
No, you're talking about Berkeley, California.
Berkeley, California, home of the goddamn Antifas.
That is correct,
What the hell is up with that? They just oppressed that young brother dreamer.
Yep. $36,000, I think, is what he actually confiscated from him. And we call that civil asset forfeiture.
30. I thought it was like $200. That's what.
No, man. They said it was $36,000 is what that cop confiscated from that hot dog vendor.
All right. I got to change my story now because no Mexican out there makes $36,000 selling hot dogs. And
not unless those hot dogs are stuffed with cocaine.
Dude, all right. Yeah, I didn't realize it was $36,000. I was under the impression.
That's a story that I read.
I was under the impression it was $200. Now, let me make a statement here. If it is $200 and they confiscated $200, let's even bump it up to $400. If they confiscated less than $400 from him, this is absolutely wrong. If they took $36,000 from him, yeah, fuck it, yeah, he got it. Whatever, you bought that one, dude.
Yeah, well, imagine getting stopped.
$6,000 and looking like a fucking illegal alien. I mean, that you earned it. Sorry, yeah. It sounds rude, but I mean,
not the best choice in the world.
And in Berkeley, dude, that's like the worst. I mean, that's the place you think you'd be able to get away with doing something like that, but.
Well, you just got the wrong cop, and I guarantee you the cop's going to be out of a job soon enough.
Oh, he is mentirosa is what he is.
Yeah, he crazy, man. That's my best Tony Montana impression.
I'm telling you, this boy, he is. We're gonna have to play him a sad canción tonight.
Yeah.
And his hot dog.
Canciones del corazón.
Canciones de lluvia.
Yeah, we are multilingual here in PrimerTime.
We understand both English and Espanols.
Espanols, and with a splattering of German for my alt-Reich people.
Shout out to meine Neggers.
Mina.
Oh, yeah, man. I bet you did not see that coming.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, so anyhow, I think with this California pistol ban kind of being lifted, it actually has no effect because A lot of
there haven't been any guns like that in the last 15 years.
Oh, there's a whole spattering of new pistols that would actually fall under that ban of, related to size and all that barrel length. But they don't make the California register, right? Because California's got a gun, and we can explain the California gun list. Basically, every manufacturer has to submit like 250 pistols to the state and a goodly number of dollars. And the state will take their time, probably about 5 years. I think in that time you have to keep on paying that goodly number of dollars to be like considered in the running. And then they will figure out if your pistol is quote unquote safe enough to be sold in the state of California, where 2 strokes give you cancer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I seriously recommend anybody that's still stuck in the state of California to get out while you can.
All right, so how do you see it? How do you see it kind of like breaking down when it all like once the North Koreans pop the EMP and Walmart quit stocking Pop-Tarts for about 3 weeks? How do you see it coming down? Because I'll tell you what, I'm in post-hurricane alley, man. I mean, I'm looking at the people who are getting smacked by Irma, and I'll tell you what, I got a bunch of friends that are being smacked by Irma, including like some friends of the show, my buddy Cracker. I hope to God you're safe, man. My buddy Chris, who was fortunate enough to get out of town. My friends David and Shirley, they were fortunate enough to get out. There's a couple other people in Florida. You guys got spanked, man. I mean, there's 14 million without power.
Yeah, but how many are actually in the state right now?
Probably a goodly number of them, man. I mean, you can't evacuate. How many people live in Florida? Was it like
shit, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Well, I think you'd be able to tell me a little bit easier than I'd be able to guess it off the top of my head.
Well, I can tell you a city like Seoul has 45 million people in it.
Yeah, but those are the Koreans, and they're shorter. You can fit them like
you could fit more in a car.
I mean, like a Hyundai Excel in Korea is like rated for 12 people.
Well, 12 Koreans or 3 Americans, one of the two.
All right, so kind of like jokingly in a way like that. I'm kind of a fan of Suzuki Samurais. I really dig Suzuki Samurais, and Suzuki Samurais, a very basic Jeep-like vehicle. It's got a 1.3 liter gasoline engine. There was actually a 2.1 liter diesel engine, which I wish I could have got one that had that. It was never sold in the United States. It was an engine overseas, very, very popular in Asia. And it was a monster engine for a little tiny vehicle like that. And they were made, I think they were made in Japan, and then they were made in Malaysia, and then they got a factory in India where they made the Maruti Suzuki. And the Maruti Suzuki would have been just like a Suzuki Samurai hardtop with like kind of like a raised roof, like a say like a Land Rover. It's got that little kind of like roof window.
Yeah, yeah.
And
they call it it's not the aquarium window like it's on the saw, but it's very similar.
Yeah, it's just right at that little camphor angle that they've got right there. They stretched the what would have been the normal hardtop and gave it maybe a foot more room off of the ass end, and it was actually rated for 12 people. Now, I'm not necessarily the hugest guy in the world, and a Suzuki Samurai it's like putting on a glove, man. You're almost like driving a 4-wheel drive sports car, 4-wheel drive go-kart that you can like do like 60 miles an hour. There is no way I'm getting 11 dudes just like me in that car. Absolutely not. Maybe 4.
Yeah.
Maybe 4. And them 3 dudes in the back seat are like all kinds of squished. They better,
I hope they went to the bathroom before they got in the car.
And I don't usually ride with guys that are fairly friendly like that. So
crazy enough, man. I tell you what. What do you think of the auto manufacturers that are making features on their automobiles to cater to the outdoorsman or the person who owns guns, say like the Dodge Outdoorsman Ram Truck Edition that has the built-in gun lockers on the side of the bed.
On those little bed flip-up tabs that they have, I see those as almost pandering. I wish Dodge was a completely different company. So Dodge has got I like the 318, but they don't put it in anything anymore. You know?
Yeah. Well, they don't even put it in customary measures. They put it all in metric.
Yeah,
So you
it's
have
all.
to
But I mean, it's not the same 318 engine, right? So they've had a whole slew of bad engines. They've had a whole slew of transmissions that, excuse me, legally they covered themselves. But I mean, honestly, there should have been a class action suit on them early Dodge Ram transmissions, right? I mean,
Yeah, well,
those things
the ones who got the oil in the oil in, what is it, the sludge in the engine?
Well, no, that's on the 4.7, the same engine that's in the Durango. I'm talking about like the 95 when the very first new body style came out, like the one that kind of like had that semi truck look that was completely different than everybody else. The thing that kind of like set the stage for today's body style.
Yeah, the big grill up front.
Well, the big grill and like the stepped grill, right? Like it had the flat fenders up front, and then it rose into it had almost like a visage of a 40s truck.
Right,
almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
It went from being a big old square, like 1986 Dodge D250, big old square box thing going down the road, to this thing that like almost looks sleek and futuristic at that time. But they had garbage automatic transmissions, and the 5-speeds were awesome. But the automatic transmission, if you put it in park and idled it, it actually cut off like the transmission oil pump, so it just got the thing hot. And every one of them things failed at about like 90 to 120,000 miles.
Well, let's hope that's changed, because I am 110 plus right now myself.
Dude, I'm telling you, you should have looked up Dodge in the Webster's dictionary.
Yeah.
To avoid is exactly what it says.
Well, there you go. What do you think of the F-150s compared to those?
I think the new F-150s in their aluminum is probably the path of the future, but I don't like their dual coil ignition thing. Like 2 coils for every cylinder, which just means there's, now on a 6-cylinder truck, there's 12 parts to replace, at $86 a piece. And if you don't replace all of them, you're replacing one every other month. So no, I think Ford's got you like kind of by the short hairs. I don't know, man. I think the next vehicle I get is going to be a used diesel truck. Probably 15 years older.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things where I'm interested definitely in the F-250s, the Super Duties.
If I was gonna buy a brand new truck, like a brand new large truck, I'd buy a Toyota Tundra. They're made in San Antonio. Toyota is fairly bulletproof. They get the same crappy gas mileage as whatever kind of thing Dodge or Chevy or Ford could put out. So I mean, there's no up or extra on anything. I'd probably, if I wasn't going to go diesel, I'd go with the Toyota Tundra.
Yeah, the only problem for me is that the Toyotas are pretty small in the interior. And, if you're driving around with a family, you're going to want something like the Ford that has the very interesting, I guess it's the flat, the flat back of the cab. So in their Super Cruise, you have a flat area where you would normally have the hump that goes over the transmission. Ford has made that whole area flat.
That means you've got like no clearance.
No, I think that they've worked it in such a way that the transmission is still elevated off the ground.
It's a front wheel drive pickup. Don't lie.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it's a hell of a lot easier to pack it full of stuff.
Okay, so all right, so let's talk about like goofy cars. You know what I think is really kind of like a badass car that a guy like me shouldn't necessarily be into? I think the Chrysler minivan from about 2 or 3 years ago, not necessarily the current iteration of it, but the one from a couple years ago, that was a neat vehicle. Those seats folded absolutely flat into the floor.
Yeah. Well, I'm just not a minivan guy, so.
You know, I can see the benefit of a minivan, especially if you could get one that was like 4-wheel drive and, you know, an actual manual transmission. I think that would be an excellent vehicle.
Yeah. Well, I'd be interested to see, you know, if they put like a all-wheel drive suspension inside one of those that got decent gas mileage.
Well, I think the only way we're going to get any kind of vehicle that has decent gas mileage and gas mileage.
Scrap the gas mileage standards.
and gas mileage and power enough to handle whatever kind of ammunition you need to haul in this situation is to go and get diesel. That's the only way you can do it. Diesel.
Yeah. Oh, well. Well, hey, let's go ahead and hit some firearm safety.
All right. First rule of firearm safety. Every firearm is loaded until you visually and physically inspect and ensure that it is not loaded. Rule number 2 is keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Do not destroy anything you do not wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know what your target is. Know what's beyond your target at all times. And the fourth and the most important rule, probably should be the first rule. We should probably actually start the show with this, is keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you're ready to fire the weapon. There are no accidental discharges. Every one of those kind of things you see reported on the news is a negligent discharge. No gun just goes off because it got shook unless it's that crappy Taurus.
or the new modular handgun system.
Yeah, well, I think you got to drop that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Maybe that's something we should discuss. There was the issue with the modular handgun system, and then just recently, Knick, which is imported by Century Firearms out of Florida, issued a safety notice and a recall, and they were going to offer a new trigger block of some sort for pistols and rate them for extreme duty. And I found this to be fairly interesting. It's a very much a CYA sort of recall. I don't know how many people are going to participate in it, honestly. I've purchased a Knick pistol. I purchased on the used market, and I purchased the very first generation of it. It's the one with the flat trigger. It doesn't have a Glock-style trigger shoe on it, and you know, the little double trigger that the Glock has.
Yeah.
And I don't know if mine is actually covered by this recall. I don't think it is, but I think this recall is in response to people doing torture tests on weapons in the aftermath of the modular handgun system fiasco, I guess is the nicest way you can call it.
Yeah. Well, you know, the interesting thing is I think that when it comes to the import guns, I'm really surprised that we don't hear a lot more recalls than what actually ends up coming out.
I'll tell you what, a lot of the import guns are fairly well made. I'll tell you this Knick pistol is a very well made pistol. It's as high quality as any kind of Walter. It's as high quality as a Glock. I mean, in its construction and its maintenance. I mean, it comes with Metgar magazines from the factory. You know, it's not some, you know, monkey in a shed with a welding torch and a hammer bending metal. You know, it's a quality pistol. I mean, it's built in an ISO 9000 factory. It's a military issue pistol. It is large. It's a service pistol. I mean, that's, you know what you're getting. But I mean, it's quality. It's. I think there's enough restrictions on imports that you're not going to get anything imported that's absolute garbage unless it's somebody like Taurus that's got kind of already a presence and they can sneak shit in. But anyhow, this recall that Knick, I swear to God, it's got to be in response to people making YouTube videos like putting guns in vices and smacking them on the ass end with a hammer.
Yeah.
I mean, you do that and almost any pistol will go off.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what you're going to do is you're going to force the hammer to go forward and, you know, firing pin to engage the primer.
And I mean, these pistols are designed that the firing pin safety and then whatever safeties are in, you know, to make them drop safe are so you can drop it from like a height of 20 foot and it won't. And I mean, that's considering, you know, a whole lot of like science and math that neither of us are experts on. But I mean, there's like mass and velocity and force and all that kind of stuff involved. And it's easily exceeded by somebody with some yahoo with a vice and a hammer smacking on the ass end of a pistol to see if it'll go off. I mean, that's just stupid. To me, anybody who makes those videos that does that kind of stuff, You're not in my club, man. You are not on my team.
Well, I mean, if you're going to go forward and you're going to destroy a perfectly good firearm to make a stupid video, you're not very bright.
This might have occurred when you were overseas and engaged otherwise with the overlords of war and all that. But there was a kind of a phenomenon in the United States in the burgeoning growth of the YouTube and a whole lot of like firearms videos was like torture tests. And any various YouTuber, name one if you've got a favorite one or anything, unnamed, untold, they perform torture tests on every handgun in the world.
Right.
And what would you consider to be a torture test of a handgun?
Basically what I consider to be torture test is, running extremely high velocity loads through a firearm, putting it through mechanical failure, making parts wear out and continuing to shoot it without replacing the parts.
So something along the lines of 100,000 rounds in a row.
Yeah. No time off to let the barrel cool, things like that.
Okay. Well, this explosion of these YouTube videos was guys like tying fishing string, some spider wire to the frame of a Glock and then hooking it to their bumper and then driving down a gravel road.
Yeah, that's not bright.
To me, that was a very, I think it set a very bad precedent. It almost established, I almost dare say, a cultural norm in the new up-and-coming firearms community. And I mean like guys that are like, 18 to 23.
Yeah. Well, and that's usually the age where guys think they're kind of bulletproof and 10 foot tall, right?
Well, I would almost guess that's almost especially more prevalent now in the United States with the percentage of the kids that are in that age group that actually do appreciate firearms, that aren't scared of them, that aren't, oh my God, that your pistol is a weapon of oppression that keeps our colored people down.
Yeah.
I would dare say that the people who have a tendency to jerk around and do stupid shit on the internet with a gun, are people that we should. How do we reach out to them, man?
I think what's going to end up reaching out to them is when they don't have a bank account anymore.
I unfortunately, I think you're absolutely correct. That's the only thing that makes people think is, stinging with the money.
That's it. Yeah, that's the only thing that I can think of.
But they've got nothing. They're jerking around on their Cricket phone for $39 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah, unlimited text, data, and voice.
Well, unlimited YouTube uploads, unlimited filming. It's got like a 4 gigabyte chip in it. I don't even know how much that is, but it sounds impressive.
Yeah, and then you can get into talking about the new Apple phone being offered for, what was it, $699.
I saw an article the other day that I was out. I believe it was Forbes, and it said your next phone could easily cost you $1,000. And
I saw that as well.
The hell it will. The hell it will.
It might well not cost me that much.
My next phone, my next imported spy device, will be the cheapest phone that does exactly what I need it to do.
Yeah. Make phone calls.
In my ignorance of the, spy proclivities of these devices. All right, so let me ask you a question. Have you ever taken the phone test?
What's that?
You live in a multicultural area. I'm sure there's a radio station that is not of your native tongue. Please turn that radio station on in a different room. Place your phone in there and then go to bed. And then when you wake up, grab your phone out of there. You can turn your phone on or off. It doesn't matter either way. You can try it both ways. I guarantee you will have advertisements in the language that your phone listened to the night before.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me at all.
I think that's the first thing that most Americans will notice as their path into the coming octopus. I guess is the best way to put it, right?
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, like I said, in my area, I can say that we only have one non-English radio station, and it is a Spanish language radio station.
Of course, you're almost in a farming area, aren't you?
No,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Spanish gospel station.
I don't know. I don't listen to it enough because, like I said, I listen to the news. I don't listen to any popular music. I don't listen to top 40.
Más radio, por favor.
Yeah. It's not like the Mexican radio station we used to listen to, in Southern California.
Okay, so I'm in South Texas, and every other radio station is in Spanish.
Right.
And I actually have a favorite Spanish radio station, to be honest with you.
Oh well.
It's a station I think it's out of San Diego, California, and they do like mariachi and different Spanish style covers of American songs. And I'll tell you what, the cover of Tennessee Ernie Ford's 16 Tons done by like dudes with accordions is badass.
Oh well, there's always Los Tigres del Norte.
What was that one? The Chevrolet Cuatro por Cuatro song. Who was that?
I have no idea. No idea.
So, yeah. Any kind of like items out there grab your eye?
Oh shit! Right now, no. Right now, I am in.
There's nothing out there that's even like remotely like interesting anymore. I mean, it's all the same rehash. I mean,
well, and that's the thing. I think your tastes go from one type to another.
But there's no innovation at all. There's no innovation. There's nothing new coming out that's available to the common man. The only thing new out there is that Silencer Co. Maxim 9 that's got the integrated suppressor that you do not walk into the store and buy. You have to go through the 9 months of FBI rigmarole to get that thing. That's the only thing that's even remotely new, and that's not. It's basically a Glock.
Right. Well, like I said, you got to wait for SHOT Show for something new to come out.
And nothing new's coming out. There's absolutely no design. It's like I almost dare say that like gas clock time. That's it. We're out of here. Thank you for listening to CY.TV. What you don't think.
What patriots do.